Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. The most striking thing about the last few days of the election campaign have been the Prime Minister's speeches. He's repeatedly attacked the Muslim community whilst telling blatant untruths about the Congress manifesto. And that raises a simple question. Why is he doing this? Or could there be more to the situation than at first meets the eye? Joining me to help answer those questions is the Indian Express's star columnist. She's covered 10 Lok Sabha elections, and I believe this is her 11th, and she is the author of the well-known and highly regarded blockbuster, the widely selling How Prime Ministers Decide, Neerja Chowdhury. Neerja Chowdhury, I want to focus this interview on the Prime Minister's recent speeches. One dominant theme in the last few days has been his attack on Muslims. He's called them those who have more children and infiltrators. He's also repeatedly claimed that in Karnataka, Congress has tried to divert OBC quotas to the Muslim community. Today in Araria, he's added that Congress wants to divert SC and ST quotas to the Muslim community. And my question is simple. At a time when most people believe he's likely to win a third term, perhaps with, in fact, a huge majority, why is he polarizing the country? Doesn't he realize that if he succeeds in polarization, he'll end up creating a fairly significant problem for himself if he wins re-election?
Look, that's a good question. And traveling through parts of North India recently, I was surprised, particularly Uttar Pradesh, particularly the areas around Muzaffarnagar, where violent clashes have taken place in 2013. It had polarized the situation and led to their victory, the BJP getting 71 out of 80 seats as a result. I found everybody, Karan, everybody saying, including the candidates, this is not a Hindu-Muslim election. They said it is a Modi election, but this is not a Hindu-Muslim election. Now, that they had been Hinduized, it's another matter. That they might have been voting for BJP, that's another matter. So given that after the first phase of polling, the Prime Minister ups the ante to such an extent, you yourself have said, calling the Muslim infiltrators. I mean, it is not any BJP leader who was speaking like that. It was the Prime Minister of India. And that has some meaning. So why has he done it? From all accounts, they got feedback from the ground that their supporters had not come out to vote. Of course, the voting turnout was much lower than in 2019, 4 to 5%, and that in that, their voters had not come out to vote as expected. Now, there are many reasons for this. One, that their karyakarta, their worker was not enthused. You didn't see this time banners, hoardings, posters, or workers of the BJP on the streets shouting Jai Shri Ram slogans. So had the slogan 400 and more, 400 par, become counterproductive. There could be many reasons for that. I'm not going into that. But the workers, to enthuse the workers, something had to be done. The other feedback I'm told they got, and I talked to people in Western UP where, the constituencies are Muslim dominated. They said in the Muslim booths, people had come out to vote in large numbers. In the Hindu areas, the percentage had slumped. Say if in Muzaffarnagar, the average was 60%, it was less than 50% in the Hindu areas where the BJP supporters live, and more than 60% in the Muslim. That is something that also worried them. The other thing that worried them, of course, is that this time it is not a Modi wave. It's not that the people don't talk about voting Modi. It's not that Mr. Modi there is anger against Modi. No, that's not the case. But it is not a wave for Mr. Modi, as was the case last time. And therefore, local issues have come to the fore much more.
Sorry, carry on.
I put it as, Modi versus local. In some areas, even hyper-local. And in that local, the caste has taken a very primary position against the caste lineups. So I think given all that, BJP, as you know, does course correction very, very quickly once they get the feedback. And they must have decided to go back to the old tried and tested method of polarizing the situation on Hindu-Muslim lines. That has always worked for them.
Let me pick up on a couple of things that you said in that very interesting and informative answer. I get the feeling that a hint of panic has begun to creep in, which is detectable in the rhetoric that we're hearing from the Prime Minister. And remember, from Sunday onwards, this theme, attacking Muslims, demonizing Muslims, has been dominant. He does it twice or thrice a day. Would you agree that there's not just course correction, but a hint of nervousness?
I would say, I would call it, maybe it's simplistic to say it's only nervousness. I think there's enormous calculation behind. There is certainly worry. There is concern. And the concern is in the ruling party with the lower voter turnout than in the Congress or the opposition. Normally, a lower voting percentage helps the incumbent. And if you get a high voting percentage, it means a vote for change and therefore the opposition. But in this case, it seems to have worried the ruling party much more than the opposition. But to say could be nervousness, but concern and go back to, you have to do you have to shift gears suddenly. And in order to do that, you're absolutely right. It wasn't one Banswara meeting where the Prime Minister talked about Mangal Sutras being taken away of women, keeping the women's constituency in mind. Subsequently, he's talked about OBC reservation being given to Muslims as in Karnataka, keeping the OBCs in mind. Then he's talked about inheritance tax and wealth distribution and financial survey that Rahul Gandhi's talked about, keeping the middle class in mind. So he had very definite constituencies in mind using the examples that he has done. But you're right, it's meeting after meeting and day after day, upping the ante all the time so that the central discourse becomes this.
The other point that you made is that it's not just an ordinary politician, not even a senior minister. It's none other than the Prime Minister speaking in this way, speaking in this manner of Muslims who are 200 million people in the population. They are fellow citizens of our country. By and large, and this is the question I want to put to you, by and large, most Indians believe that the Prime Minister, whoever he or she may be, will do the right and honorable thing. It's a sort of innate belief we all have in our Prime Ministers. And yet the attempt to turn Hindus against Muslims is so blatant and obvious this time. It's clearly not what most Indians expect from their Prime Minister. So when this message is delivered repeatedly, how are people responding? Are they surprised? Are they shocked? Are they shaken? Or have they learned to take it in their stride?
Look, there are all these categories. There are people who are quite unhappy that this should come from the Prime Minister. There are people who are worried about the Mangal Sutra. Will this happen? There are those also. I would like to study a little more the impact of the Prime Minister's words on the people at the ground level. and how they are reacting to it. But coming to your other point, some people used to say that people close to the Prime Minister's office, that in his third term, the Prime Minister will become more inclusive, will reach out to the Muslims in a new way. He's already begun by reaching out to the Pasmanda Muslims. And you're right that it is not a population of 20,000 Muslims in India. It's 200 million Muslims. Suppose we were to believe, Karan, everything that's being said, the worst possible that is being said about the Muslims, that they're like this. Even so, if you antagonize them, alienate them, make them feel beleaguered, insecure, is that in the larger interest, your interest, my interest, their interest, Modi's interest? Particularly a prime minister who wants to leave an enduring legacy in the country. It's not just power. We hear it's not only about power as far as he's concerned. So when I heard that, yes, there may be a possibility of the prime minister reaching out to the Muslims and the minorities in a new way, that I hope that will happen. And of course, but will it not become more difficult? Because some people will dismiss it as, okay, every party does it, it's election rhetoric, at election time, the Mani Shankar Iyer can go to niche, and therefore, this kind of thing, explanations can be given. But where does it, what does it, if I was a Muslim today, what would I be feeling?
Absolutely. You would be feeling crushed, you'd be feeling rejected, you'll be feeling as if you've been pushed into a corner. And that's why I want to ask you a third question. Most people who know the Prime Minister say he's very conscious of the place he will occupy in history. Whenever that history is written, how do you think people will remember and recall his anti-Muslim rhetoric? The fact that he's consciously and deliberately seeking to divide the country for political gain, for his party, and very possibly for himself. Is he endangering that position in history that everyone believes he craves?
Look, I can't say I feel happy about it. And yet I would say, let's see what the Prime Minister does in the future. Whether, there'll be other notes struck. It's a fact, an unfortunate fact, Karan, that for most politicians in our country, politics is equal to vote. I wish it was more than that, but that is the way things have gone. And vote is very important. If you don't come to power, the story doesn't begin at all. So it is not to undermine the importance of the vote. And this party, the BJP, is driven. They are hungry for power. As I said, quick to course correct, 24/7. And therefore, they do certain things thinking maybe in the future they'll be able to make amends post-election if they come back to power, which they hope to do, and most people think they will. But the larger impact on the social fabric, the direction of politics, yes, I don't feel very happy about that.
Now, I said in my introduction that there were two dominant themes in the Prime Minister's speeches. The second theme, which he repeated in Aligarh, in Agra, in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, is untruths about the Congress manifesto. Not only has he claimed Congress will grab women's Mangal Sutras and give it, as he says, to their constituency, but he's also said, and I'm quoting him, they want to survey how much salaried persons have invested in fixed deposits, how many vehicles they own, how much land they own. They will then conduct this survey and seize your property. Those are blatant untruths. None of that is in the Congress manifesto at all. And many people wonder, why is he attacking the Congress party when no one seriously believes it's an electoral threat to him this time round?
No, that's absolutely true. As I said, where the takkars are coming, the contests are coming is because of local factors coming to the fore much more. Some places, of course, Congress also. But, takkar is not equal to victory. And particularly if there is a machinery like the BJP's machinery to take care of the last mile. Now, if they won by 3 lakh votes, maybe they'll be down to 1 lakh lead this time, or 50,000 lead. That is possible. So I agree with you. Congress is not going to replace them this time round. But you see a visible expression of dissatisfaction much more than you saw in 2019, number one. And I suspect the opposition's vote share will go up this time, whether or not they win many more seats. As for the spin that he's giving, rhetorical spin, nowhere is it mentioned Mangal Sutra, but that's the spin he's giving. Now, you can say all politicians do it. They do it much better than others, truth or otherwise.
Tell me this, you spend a lot of your time during this campaign on the ground at the rallies, not just listening to the speaker, but observing the audience. How do they respond when the Prime Minister spins these yarns, these lies, I'll say, about the Congress manifesto? Do they believe him? Do they get worried? Or do they say to themselves, ये तो election ही है, election के समय सब लोग सब कुछ कहते हैं? Which of the two responses is it?
I haven't been at the meetings where he's spoken like this to be able to judge. But I suspect it'll be a bit of both. There are what I call at election time meetings that are dead or sanitized, where people come, they're brought, they come and do their duties, sit and listen and go. And there are what are called the live meetings, where there's a spark, there is some kind of response, and you feel that people are connecting. Now, for instance, I saw Priyanka Gandhi at Dosa, and I thought, my God, she's connecting. And people were listening very intently to her. And when I asked them afterwards, they said she's a very good vakta, very good speaker. Now, whether or not they will win Dosa is another thing. I saw Malda today, again on television screen, Prime Minister speaking about all this, North Bengal. I could see response. So I cannot answer your question because I don't have a feel for it, how the Prime Minister's revised rhetoric is actually being received at the ground level.
Neerja, let's come at this point to the Election Commission's response, such as it is, slow as it's been, to what the Prime Minister has said for the last 5-6 days. They haven't sent the Prime Minister a direct show cause notice, but they've instead written to the BJP President JP Nadda on the grounds the Prime Minister is a star campaigner for the BJP and the threshold of compliance expected of him is therefore higher than expected of others. Is that an effective and adequate response? Or given that this is the Prime Minister, and for that very reason, should they have written to him directly and asked, this is a show cause notice?
Look, Karan, this is the new one. Both Mr. Nadda, party president of the BJP, and Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, president of the Congress, receiving notices on behalf of the Prime Minister because of the Prime Minister and because of what Rahul Gandhi had said. This is a new one. We've not seen this before. It is indirect censure even to send that notice.
But only indirect.
Yes. If it had gone directly, then the Prime Minister replies. That's the way it was done in the past. Of course, remember Indira Gandhi in 1975 lost her membership of the Lok Sabha when she was Prime Minister because of electoral malpractices in the 1971 elections.
Right. Yashpal Kapoor was accused of helping build the platform for which she spoke.
Yeah, but that was, I must point out, that was the courts that did it, not the Election Commission.
But coming back to the Election Commission, they issued this indirect notice not to Narendra Modi, but to JP Nadda instead yesterday. But the Prime Minister has gone on today to say exactly the same things that they're objecting to. He made those comments in Malda in Bengal. He made them again in Araria in Bihar. And no doubt he'll be saying it, if he has other speeches to make today, he'll be saying it tomorrow again. Given that he is being defiant, he hasn't stopped, he hasn't retracted, but he's being defiant, he's repeating what he said. Now has the time come for the Election Commission to say, sorry, we're sending you a direct notice directly to you.
Karan, let's see what the Election Commission of India does today after those meetings. Certainly all eyes are on the Election Commission.
Do you expect a response because he's defied them immediately after that notice was sent, i.e. he said the same thing today despite the notice going out yesterday? Do you expect a response from the Election Commission?
As I say, all eyes are on the Election Commission. Because the Prime Minister, as you say, has repeated the same things today. So let's see what they do.
Has this
No,
become...
all eyes are on the Election Commission of India, not just in the country, the worldwide. Over the decades, Indian elections are watched with respect and interest on how we conduct them. And therefore, Election Commission is the body that ensures that they are free and fair.
You're saying two very important things. You're saying, first of all eyes are on the Election Commission, not just in India, but worldwide. Because the Election Commission has such a high reputation, the world will be watching how they respond, how they react, and what more they do.
Yes, absolutely. That's been the case over the years. People around the world watch with respect. And Karan, for all the fault lines of our democracy, you and I and so many others are proud of India's incredible democracy.
Absolutely. But at this moment in time, if the Election Commission fails to do its job, creeping doubt will begin to rise to the surface. Are you agreeing?
Yes, I mean, those questions will arise in people's minds, of course.
Tell me, has this therefore become an important test of the credibility of the Election Commission?
Yes, in the way they handle it, it's not easy when the Prime Minister of India is involved, not easy at all. But as I say, the country is watching how the Election Commission will handle this. Handle this and other violations that take place.
I take your point.
Even-handed.
I take your point that it's not easy when the Prime Minister of India is involved, but it's when the Prime Minister of India is involved that it becomes a true test of your credibility, your independence, and your capacity to stand up for the values that you are committed to stand up for. Now, do you really believe that when this matter is finally resolved, that this commission will have the strength and independence to ban the Prime Minister from campaigning for a day or two or three? Remember, that's what they did in 2014 when they found against Amit Shah, who at the time was president of the BJP. He was stopped from campaigning for a couple of days, and I believe he then had to actually apologize. I'm saying that from memory, but I think I'm correct. In 2024, when the man in the target is the Prime Minister of India, do you think this commission has the strength of character and independence, the integrity to take the same tough decision?
Well, Karan, all I can say is that I hope the election commissioners will do what is right by the Indian voter and fair, and which leads to an impartial election.
In other words, they owe it to us. They owe it to be the Indian voter that they do the right thing.
That the election is non-partisan, it is free and fair. They owe it to every Indian, yes.
Neerja Chowdhury, my last question. There are still roughly 5 weeks more of campaigning ahead of us. The last voting is only on the 1st of June. Do you think the sort of election rhetoric that has become commonplace and has been repeated over the last 5-6 days could become a lot worse before this election winds up?
Well, I hope not. I hope, what can you say, wiser counsels will prevail. And that, if they've set the narrative that they move on to, it's not so divisive. You can have your say, very sharply argued. You believe in what you believe in, put that straight out there, but without hurting as I say, the fabric of India and its future.
You're saying you hope the rhetoric doesn't get worse. What's your realistic expectation, given that even 24 hours after that notice was delivered, the Prime Minister has continued to defy the Election Commission?
Let's see, Karan, let's see. There are lots of things at work. So let's just see how it pans out.
All right, Neerja Chowdhury, thank you very much for making time for me. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, Karan.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.